Welcome to Conversations with Verdel Jones. I'm your host, Verdel Jones. Being an educator at heart, I'm dedicated to sharing conversations that inform and enlighten in the hopes that you learn something you may not have known. And remember, in the words of Maya Angelou, when you learn, teach, and when you get, give. We have a great show planned for you today. I'm super excited. We have Kevin Smith. He is the founder of KDSL Global, and he's going to talk to us about teachers becoming or transitioning to the role of entrepreneurs within the education field. So he has a wealth of information, and we're going to invite him on in a minute. But before we get started, I want to thank a couple people. First, I want to thank Nancy Vargas Johnson, our sponsor. She is a realtor in the Long Island area. So if you're looking to buy or sell a home, Suffolk and Nassau County, you can check her out. Our contact information is right there. We always have great things to say about Nancy. So check her out. The other thing I wanted to mention is we're always looking for sponsors to sponsor the Conversations with Verdel Jones show. So there's sponsorship opportunities available, and there's contact information right there on the screen, so you can check us out, and get to us, and sponsor the show, keep the show going. We like to have partnerships in that way as well. So a couple of things I wanted to talk about before we get started. You can follow me on Twitter at DeliTeach, DeliTach. You can also go to our Facebook page, Conversations with Verdel Jones, and make sure you like that page. You can also follow us on Instagram, again, DeliTeach, DeliTach. So one of the things that I wanted to do before we got started today was kind of talk about something that's really just astounds me. We last night, Jeremiah and I, and you guys know Jeremiah, we were watching TV or whatever, and of course we were on Facebook and everything, and we saw that Roland Martin's show is going to be canceled, and we didn't really talk about it last night, but when we got up this morning, I was driving to work, I called him and I said, I cannot believe that a show like Roland Martin would be canceled. It's a really important show that kind of talks about what's going on in our community, and for something like that to be canceled is just terrible. I mean, there's not a lot of news outlets out there that follow stories that deal with our community in all different ways and just bring attention to a lot of things as well. So we're really upset that we are losing the Roland Martin show on TV1. We hope that he does something to kind of, create a space where he can be able to do what he does on the Roland Martin show. So, this is, a sad day. But I just wanted to get that out because I think it's so important. Like a show like mine, and there's other shows out there too that, really try to bring, Archie Snowden. He's a local videographer, and he brings us positive news all the time. And he really tells us what's going on in our communities. And, we need more information like that. He talks about all of Long Island, but I think it's just important. So, we can't let our this information not be heard, and I think that's what I love to try to do on the Conversations with Verdel Jones. I like to share information, and one of the things that Kevin mentioned about one of the lessons he learned talks about him sharing information and not holding on to information, and that really resonated with me because I feel that's so important. So I just wanted to get that off my chest a little bit, give you guys a little bit of information about how to follow me, how to like me. I also have a YouTube channel, DeliTeach, and make sure you subscribe to that YouTube channel, because what happens is whenever I upload a new video, you'll get a notification and you'll get to see the show. I edit it just a little bit from the live show, and you can check it out. So make sure you subscribe to DeliTeach as well. So let's get started with our guests. We have, as I said, Kevin Simpson. He is an educator and founder of KDSL Global. It's an education consulting company, and they have helped over 500 schools and thousands of educators worldwide. And the question that we're going to be looking at today is really, how does one transition from teacher to an entrepreneur? How can one work in education around the world? And once Kevin gets started, he's going to tell you where he's been. And he's been, as a matter of fact, you can see him there, he's been a lot of places. So we're going to talk to him about that as well. So he's been spending over a decade kind of figuring this out and living in these questions. So he is a perfect person to kind of share his lessons that he's learned as he's gone through this journey. So, Kevin, I want to welcome you to the Conversations with Verdel show. Thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you, Verdel. I'm happy to be here.
Great.
And I'm coming live from Amman, Jordan.
Yeah, okay. See, I told you, Kevin is all over the place. So I'm really excited that we are able to kind of pin you down and have you on the show. It's probably like 3 o'clock in the morning there, or I don't know. What time is it there?
Good question. You know what? I'm to the point now where time zones don't even exist, but
Right.
it's 2 a.m. here.
Okay. All right. That's close. Okay. So, I also, before we get started in our conversation, I want to thank Nadine Richards. Now, Nadine works in Dubai, and she is a colleague of mine. We used to work together in a couple of districts, and she kind of hooked us up and made that connection. And I know connections are some of the things that that you talk about. That's so important. So I have to give Nadine a shout out for kind of making the connection with you.
Definitely, definitely. And she's a connector.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great to meet others in the education space
That's right.
who are willing to connect people with people
Mm-hmm.
to form those relationships.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's important, and you talk about that all throughout your 10 lessons. From becoming a teacher or an educator toward the entrepreneurial, space. So please let our viewers know about your journey. How did you get to where you are? And we're going to talk all about KDSL Global as well. But when I was reading your journey, it's so steeped in education. So how did you get from a teacher point of teacher position to where you are now? Touching the lives of educators in schools throughout the world.
It has been just an amazing journey. And I always say I'm a teacher first.
Right.
I still split time between Chicago and Dubai.
Okay.
I still, when I'm in Chicago, when I have the chance, guest teach at local schools, which
Oh,
is
okay.
great.
Oh,
I
that's
still
great.
have that touch and that experience in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
But the beginning, it really was an unknown. I didn't know where to start, how to get started.
Mm.
Had a lot of questions, wrote them down, talked to a lot of people,
Right.
read books.
Mm-hmm.
And my biggest source, I definitely would say, would be Alistair Runha.
Mm-hmm.
We met at Michigan State almost 18 years ago. He's a good friend and business advisor. And he just really encouraged me to just get started, to
Mm-hmm.
go for it,
Do it.
to just jump into the unknown. And so I think that was that big launch
Mm-hmm.
into just being blind, feeling like I'm blindfolded and walking. So I sort of like I literally where some people would be frightened. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the entrepreneurs to be or education consultants to be that I've collaborated with and worked with in the past, that their number one thing is income.
Right.
Where's this money going to
Coming
come from?
from.
How am I going to stay afloat? I walked away from a position, actually two positions, nice positions, salary,
Wow.
and just felt that there was more I wanted to do, more I wanted to do around the world. Even the times when my thinking was sort of in that mode of, oh, I should get a full-time job. It just never panned out, and an opportunity presented
See.
itself
Mm-hmm.
in each instance. So
Right.
it definitely was difficult. I always start with that it was difficult, it was long, it was arduous,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of work, a lot of patience, but definitely worth the journey.
Right. And you know what? It's when you say, a lot of people who want to become entrepreneurs who have that education background, it's so scary because I think, and I've often said that I've been teaching for, in education. I was a teacher, I was a counselor, now I'm an administrator for 24 years.
Mhm.
And I think as educators, we get, for lack of a better phrase, we get trapped into all that education brings: a steady
Right.
job, a steady income, and a pension. And a lot of us who have a passion that might have to do with being, an entrepreneur, we're stuck.
Right. It's
Mm-hmm.
true. And I think there's been in a recent 3 to 5 years a lot of more opportunities available
Yeah.
through things like Teach to Lead,
Mm-hmm.
teacherpreneurs, a lot of groups and orgs will promote, either, if you have an idea, you can stay in the classroom and then pursue that.
Right.
But then there's also this chance, and looking at different pathways, because I was in a system where it was a traditional pathway. So you could be a teacher, you can be a head of department, a specialist,
Right.
a coach, an administrator. So you can work through that pathway.
Right.
But for me, when I looked up at what the potential future opportunities held, it just didn't interest me.
Right.
And so I really had to have, a hard talking conversation with myself and reflect and say, am I going to continue on a path I don't want to go on, or look for something totally different?
Right. Right. Because you know what, just like you said, there is a path, and that path in education is so narrow. You're a teacher, you're a department chair, then you're administrator, then maybe you go to central office, then it's very and it doesn't really leave a lot of room for I mean, you can be creative, don't get me wrong, in those particular positions, but what you either know you want to continue, or I'm done and this is the end game for me, and then I'll just get out.
Right. And that lockstep for me, it didn't work.
It didn't work, right.
And it was, I know me was short term, and it was just like, for my mind, I have to constantly be busy and
right.
interested and invested.
Right.
And I just can't fake the funk.
Right.
So I just can't take a position to do that. And of course, being a male in education,
yes.
The question I was always asked, when are you going to be a principal?
Right. Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so true. And it's funny, in the district that I'm in, the administration, central administration is so male dominated, and that you always see that type of thing. So it's like a given that if you're going to be a teacher
right.
and you're a man, you have to go that route.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about KDSL Global. What is your organization about? And then we're going to get into some of the lessons that you've learned as you've gone through this journey.
Perfect, thanks. We started off as KDSL USA in 2007.
Okay.
Sort of U.S. focused at that point. Was collaborating a lot with organizations around Washington, D.C., from
right.
charter schools to nonprofits. One World Education was one of the first groups I collaborated with. They had a very innovative model, taking student writing and turn it into curriculum. And then it sort of branched off from there. I was in the U.S., but still wanted to, collaborate around the world. I'd been in
right.
Vientiane, Laos, for a short period, about 1.5 years, and that experience, and then had traveled to Africa previously, sort of impacted, opened my eyes to this world sort of outside of the U.S.
Right.
And the opportunities and businesses exist outside the U.S. So, sometimes we have that little list of things we want to do. So on my 30s list was, it would be great to start a company somewhere else in the world.
Wow.
So I spent a lot of the 30s just focused on that. And then that led to going to Qatar short term for a coaching position. And then, again, my business advisor and good friend, Alistair Haranha, said, hey, there's a lot going on in education in Dubai.
Yeah.
You should check it out. You never know, what you could do.
Right.
So applied for a job, position that was a brand new school. Had a call the next day from the head of school, and was on the airplane into December. Went to Dubai for 1.5 years.
Wow.
And then again, it was still, so I had that full-time job.
Okay. Right.
Focused there. But the second year of the full-time job, I really became aware of time. And from the instance, and so when people are getting started, I always say, look at how you're spending your time.
Okay.
You have your full-time job, you get off at some point. Yes, you come home from dinner, which are usual routines, but find a space of 15 to 30 minutes to focus on something you want to do, something you're passionate about.
Okay.
And that's literally how the company was built, like 4 or 5 times a week, spending at least half an hour to 45 minutes, which led to an hour, which led to an hour and a half.
Right.
Just on ideas, just on potential things that may have been missing in Dubai, things I was learning about the region, things back in the States that I was thinking about. And that literally just, when I went back to the States in 2010, I went back with just work and projects ready to go, and was full-time, just consulting and working directly in the company.
Wow. I have 2 questions. What made you want to travel like as extensively as you did? Like, did you go to, your first, experience out of the country and you said, you know what, this is, I like this. This is what I want to do. Is that how it kind of evolved from you, like wanting to be a worldwide entity in reference to, education?
I think it did. My cousin and I, she's an educator also.
Mm-hmm.
Angie and I won I won a free trip. Like when I watch how old this is, I won a free trip to Africa
Okay.
via it was BT, it was a BET magazine. So back in the day,
Wow.
like I'm
Okay.
dating myself, 1996. So spring break, and I ended up, everyone's,
Wow.
where are you going for spring break? Going to
Mm-hmm.
Florida, going here,
Right.
New York. I was like, I'm going to Africa. So won a free trip
That's
to
great.
Benin, to Cotonou,
Oh,
and that
wow.
was like the eye opener in
Okay.
terms of traveling outside. I didn't have a passport at that point,
Mm-hmm.
so
Wow.
mom made sure I had a passport, had all that stuff done. Went there for almost 2 weeks,
Wow.
and it literally was that experience outside of
Mm-hmm.
the U.S. And
Absolutely. So
seeing what
different.
life was like, how people live, how they operate,
Hmm.
how they function, taking tours and really engaging locally with folks. I think that really was
Yeah.
that. It sort of was that first little seed,
Right. Exactly.
and then that next one, obviously, I had and during my master's program, I encountered a young man who we were at the end of our summer program,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all talking. I think we were having lunch one day, and he said, "Oh, at the end of the summer, I'm going back to London," and
Okay. London.
everyone's eyes looked like, "Wait a minute." You know, we've been together for 6 weeks. He never mentioned anything about London, so I had to pull him to the side, like, "Can you tell me more about London?"
Right.
And so he
That's
gave
awesome.
me information, and that's why I feel like for me, the whole information would be wrong because
That's
he was
right.
very open and candid.
With
He
it.
said there are
Absolutely.
these international schools around the world. There are opportunities to teach, to become an
Mm.
administrator, and he gave me lists of groups and organizations to follow up
Wow.
with and to
Mm.
research.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
So now, so that journey, to wanting to travel and to see different places, and the other question I had, you had mentioned about how you got started, having that full time job and then going, spending 15 to 20 minutes per day on something that you loved. How
Hmm.
how did you? I think that's hard for people to do, to really say, okay, I'm going to spend a half an hour to focus on something that I love or something that I'm really committed to doing, and then
Hmm.
finding the time to do it. And now, especially, there's so many distractions.
True.
So how does one focus and be able to, to start that process?
Hmm. And I think everyone has to, find their own system. So
Yeah.
the over 40 sort of entrepreneurs, consultants I collaborate with, I always say find what works best for you.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's journaling, if it's blogging, if it's
Mm-hmm.
recording,
Something.
whatever it might be, taking notes, whether it's reading something, connecting, interviewing someone, find what works best for you in whatever time and space. So
Right.
my thinking is always this: calculate how much time you're watching This Is Us,
Right. Right.
reality TV, you know. And
Right.
if I,
Right.
if I were to take time out of some of the things that I do in my normal,
It's
routine
true.
and build, because a lot of it is things that just become habitual and just
Right.
become habits
Yes.
over time. Because that's
Mm-hmm.
how it became. It just became a habit
It became a
that over
habit.
time it's like, all
Exactly.
right, today you got to work on this,
Right. And
and get in that mindset.
and one of the things that I liked when I was reading your 10 lessons was knowing where your surroundings and what's going
Mhm.
on in relation to what you're interested in. So, education, we're talking education. So you need to know what's going on around you.
Mhm.
And the only way that you can do that is, the reading and the researching and talking to people. So it
Yep.
kind of talks about two of the lessons that you mentioned. The first one is like relationships and
Mhm.
developing those relationships, but knowing when the relationship is a good relationship or a relationship that you need to get rid of.
Exactly.
So how do you go about why is building those relationships so important when you're talking about becoming an entrepreneur, and
Mhm.
how do you identify when that relationship is you know is not worth the time and energy that you might be putting into it?
Great question.
Hmm.
I think the big thing with relationships, I always say, it's important to build them and maintain them.
Right.
And it's anything from checking in,
Hmm.
with folks, people who you may not
Mm.
have talked to, in years, reaching back. Knowing
Yeah.
it's about growth,
Right.
and being upfront. It was a consultant last week I talked to, and she had just come back from the Middle East. She's very
Hmm.
excited. She's like, I see opportunities. And so for her, someone from the Middle East connected me with her,
Okay.
which is a lot of times that's how it's happening.
Right.
So my big
Right.
thing is like be a connector,
Right. Being a connector.
but also
Hmm.
connect people. So again,
Right.
that whole it's not about, because my big premise has always been it's not about competition.
Hmm.
It's, to me, it's always been about collaboration.
Yes.
And the more I
Absolutely.
know about
That's
people
right.
and what they can offer and do, the more when an opportunity presents itself for them or for myself, I can bring
Hmm.
them in or they can bring me in.
Right.
So it's being very transparent about that. And so I think over time, it's just knowing what are the areas that I want to grow in, who can I talk to. And for me, I just was very comfortable with reaching out to people. So if I didn't know something or was curious about something
Hmm.
and I see this book, let me just email,
Right.
Carol Ann Thomason about differentiation,
Right.
and she'd respond. I'm
Right.
like, I've been to her workshops, a few times,
That's right.
or let me just email the authors of the Common Core or the C3 standards or any of these topics in
Hmm.
education I was curious about. And to be honest, I have always received a response,
Yep.
which
Right.
has been,
Right.
I've been very gracious, and very, humbled and
Hmm.
grateful because I know people are getting lots of email.
Yeah.
Um, and then, like you said, that second piece of sometimes relationships, just like in every relationship, if
Right.
it's you're giving a whole lot, and I'm the type
Right.
where I will stand back and sort of reflect and say, all
Hmm.
right, so Kevin or Katie Sell Global's doing these 20 things. Let me look at the other side. Zero, or my favorite one, that Rihanna song, Work. It's like, okay, so who's doing all the
Who's
work?
doing all the
Wait a
work?
minute, right? It's like this might not be a fit. So
Right.
there are times when and I'm big on. There are times when you have to have that come to Jesus, come to Allah meeting with people,
Right.
and saying it was a pleasure. Let me know in the
Yeah.
future if there's a way I can
Hmm.
connect,
Right.
with you or connect you with someone else. But if it's not a fit, again, it's not worth taking the phone. Yeah, it's not a
Right.
fit. Yeah,
Exactly. It's time to move
yeah.
on. the the other thing that with relationships, all of the lessons that you kind of describe tie in so nicely together. So speaking of relationships, you had mentioned the importance of a mentor,
Mm-hmm.
and that the mentor is there to challenge the mentee.
Yep.
And I know one of the things you're dedicated to doing is having people think a different way, or differently. And
Yeah.
so that mentor piece is so important. But I think a lot of times when people think of mentors, it's like, is a mentor something that is intentional, or is it
Mm-hmm.
something that just develops?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think it could be a combination at times. I think
Yeah.
over time there's people who you connect with or you're constantly in communication with,
Hmm.
and that happened with a lot of my advisors. Dr. Mary Thorman, I love to mention them by names.
Hmm.
They probably got a little 10-year gift this week.
Hmm.
Dr. Johnny Gordon and Alistair Runha is people who you
Right.
respect, you see their information,
Hmm.
they question you, they challenge you, they really push your thinking.
Right.
And so for
Hmm.
me, it's like over time, I literally said, how much I respected them and their work in education globally and
Okay.
around the U.S.
Right.
Um, would they be interested in being an advisor, to the KDSL
Okay.
Global team? And they
Ah.
welcomed that.
Okay.
And again, it was like it wasn't even intentional; it was just to sort of happen.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and
Right.
where me, it's like I think that's the same thing with relationships. Is like I have mentors, but I'm also a mentor.
Right. Exactly.
So it's like again
Right.
that two-way street.
It's a
So if I'm
two-way
just sitting
street.
here taking everything from them but not giving to someone else,
You can't do
yeah.
that. Right. And that's the thing with, because I listen to I listen to Karen Hunter
Hmm.
on Urban View, and there was a conversation about mentors, and she said that you know it's kind of, I guess, awkward if somebody asks you, all right, do you want to be my mentor? As opposed to, letting that kind of come naturally. But I love the way that you put it when you're asking individuals who you respect, would you mind being an advisor
Hmm.
to whatever project I'm working on? I think that seems more of a, instead of saying, do you want to be my mentor? As a,
Right.
as a natural kind of mentor mentee type of relationship.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. And this
definitely.
grows over times and it changes,
Hmm.
in phases and stages.
Right.
But yeah, they have stuck through me, through a lot,
Right.
and soundboards, people I can just, I'm
Soundboards.
going to
Yeah.
toss this idea out,
Exactly. Right.
It
Exactly.
probably sounds crazy. That's a good thing. I want
Yeah.
to sort of get your reaction,
Right.
and think through, what if this succeeds? What if this fails?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And I think a lot of times too, some people tend to work in a vacuum, like,
Right.
and I know for me, it's, I have all of this in my head, and you have to get it out, and you have to have that sounding board. If you don't, you're just kind of spinning your wheels, I think,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So you have to get that out, and talk to someone who you respect,
Right.
their opinion on. One of the other things that I kind of wanted to touch base with you on, in that, and your lessons, is the connection
Hmm.
and collaboration. With social media, it seems that it's easier to have those connections. We
Hmm.
had an administrator in my district. He was, he's known for his Twitter connections,
Hmm.
and Dr. Tony Sinanis, and he wrote books in reference to staying connected, and how to share your school story, and he was sharing that through Twitter. He was able to connect with so many people in so many different places with ideas, and it was an exchange of ideas. So how can someone use social media in that way to
Hmm.
collaborate and connect?
Perfect. Yeah, I think, again, like you said, social media. There's so many,
Mm-hmm.
you know, pieces of, or information. There's
Right.
so many avenues you can go.
Yeah.
I think, for me, starting off on Twitter was being strategic about it.
Okay.
So Facebook, I was sort of like, it was my social piece,
Yeah.
connecting with
Right.
people,
Right.
family around the world,
Yes.
staying connected that way.
Right.
And then throwing up, setting up a KSL global page at
Mm-hmm.
some
Yes.
point. That ended up coming. But for Twitter, I said, I want to keep this very professional.
Professional. Right.
So the
Yep.
strategy around that was to follow people, organizations around the world who I want to read and know more about,
Mm-hmm.
learn about, caring for Cambodia,
Mm-hmm.
just people, places I may have been, places I
Okay.
may not have been, places I want to go in the future.
Okay.
World Bank, so staying aware and abreast of research, data, information, groups, organizations. So for me, that was that key. And so when I'm away, that's one of my go-tos.
Okay.
I'm definitely on Twitter, and so
Right.
it's like looking for articles. What can I read?
Looking for
What can I
articles.
learn? 'Cause the big thing daily, is my big question is what do I need to learn today? What are my interests today? So.
Right. And so in a practical way, if I'm an entrepreneur and I want to use, that platform to be able to connect with people, I'm
Mhm.
following people and reading information. How do you go about making a deeper connection or collaborative type of relationship with people that you might follow, or kind of interact with on Twitter? Like, what do you do? What are some practical things that you can do? Because some people, aren't comfortable with that, or they don't know if
Right.
there's a boundary there, or So how do you go about
True.
doing that?
Right. Good. Yeah. So I initially, to be honest, when I'm thinking about following someone,
Right.
I look at their profile.
Right.
I look to see, is there a website or a link to something else that would give me more information about them as a
Yeah.
person or
Okay.
their company. But I also look at, what are they tweeting or retweeting.
Right. Right. Yes.
That's a big
It
indicator
is.
of whether I'm going to follow them or not.
Right.
So if it's too social, too selfie, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
you know but if it's this is the latest strategy, or OECD just said this about collaboration and problem solving, in students around the world, or this
Mm-hmm.
just is something that just broke out of Ed Week,
Mm-hmm.
things like that,
Things like
I'm
that.
very
Okay.
likely to connect with them.
Right. Okay.
And so one example would be a group that I'm now, one of their advisors on. It's the Global Education Conference. They hold every November.
Okay.
It's free to attend, educators around the world.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, so I was following, I think it's Elemis. So Lucy Gray and Steve Hargadon are the co-founders of this group.
Okay.
And I was following her. I think I was in between the U.S. and overseas at that point,
Mm-hmm.
and just enjoy what they were doing. And I just messaged her, one day, and she's like, "Oh, I just, looked through your Twitter." So I looked at her, Twitter. She looked through mine.
Right.
She's like, we should connect.
Right.
And so we ended up, connecting, and it was and by connecting, it was virtual, so it was on Skype.
Okay.
And then we finally met. Watch
Mm-hmm.
this. We finally met at TEDx New York Ed
Oh,
in
wow. See.
2011.
Mm-hmm.
So it is one of those moments where it's like almost like you see people online, and
That's
then it's like,
right.
wait a minute, oh, you're actually a real person,
That's right.
offline.
Yes.
And we had a chance to connect and talk face to face. And I saw her recently at another global education conference that was held in Chicago earlier this year, and I'll see her in March at ASCD.
See, that's great.
So it is, and a
It
lot of
really
times it's
is.
email or it might be a virtual hangout or meetup.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's one example.
Yeah,
So
and I think, the takeaway is for people to not be intimidated or not be afraid to
hmm
make those connections, because you never know where they could be a mutual, a mutual situation where, this that relationship can be formed.
right.
Yeah, definitely. Um, you I've never heard of, and this is something you mentioned, and it's one of your lessons, the FMOB mindset, which stands for first, most, only, and best. I've never heard of that particular mindset. Can you talk about that just a little bit, and how it relates to transitioning your thinking to start and build, your business?
Right. So I first heard about it, it would have been last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on the beach, supposed to be on, holiday. And my partner's reading Robin Sharma's The Leader Who Has No Title.
Uh-huh.
He's like, you would love this acronym, FMOB. And I'm like, FMOB.
FMOB.
So
Okay,
it's like
FMOB.
first, most, only, best. I think if you look
Okay.
that up, it might have another connotation.
Okay.
But it's like this connotation I'm talking about is first, most, only, best.
Okay.
And so for me, I said, that's, it was the first time I'd heard it.
Right.
So last year, and I said, that's really, when I thought about everything I had been trying to do and working towards,
Mm-hmm.
it was, really that, how to, put information out there first, wherever I was at,
Okay.
constantly sort of populate it.
Hmm.
Because like I always say, I don't have a marketing budget. I always say, so connections, relationships,
Right.
awareness, linking people and groups accordingly,
Yeah.
and collaboration.
Right.
That's my marketing budget.
That's
So,
okay. Right.
but to be in that space where you're the only one doing what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, it's around like in the space out here in the Middle East, North Africa region,
Mm-hmm.
promoting other people, promoting their companies,
Mm.
promoting their ideas, making sure other
Okay.
people know about that.
Right.
Our colleague Sean Robeson started Teaching Talent, which is an app
Okay.
to disrupt how educators find international jobs.
Oh,
And so for me,
okay.
I'm like, he's the first one doing that. So again, finding others who are the
The
first,
first.
but also in the same light, myself being the first in terms of what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that came around like, reading, research, and writing that I want to put out publications no one else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really one of those. I sort of thought back, and I mean, like I said, it's at the same time, it's you hear and you're like, oh, to be the first, most, only, best, but then at the same
Right.
time, it's like to maintain that.
Yes.
So it's a fine line of balancing act. I
Right.
find nowadays.
Right, and that's where I think you're very deliberate in doing your research and finding out what's going on, and just really being in the mix, and
hmm
that's so key. And I think educators who would like to be entrepreneurs, they already have that gene, so to speak, but it's just
Right.
using it for you, as opposed
Exactly.
to as for your students, or your the faculty, or whatever it might be.
Yep.
Yeah, learning
Exactly.
how to leverage that, so to speak,
Right.
that gene. So, technology plays a big role, and again, reading through your lessons, you had talked about how technology is really changing things. I think in the intro, with there was someone who wrote the intro, and they were talking about technology, and I can't remember the exact phrasing, but how does technology, in the education world, how does the technology now present opportunities for educators?
Yeah, it is truly and honestly a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, yeah, before it was written by Bernard West,
Okay.
another just advisor, mentor I highly look up to. And
Bernard
again,
West.
someone who connected me. I was
Right.
in Dubai, shared something I was interested in. She was like, I need to introduce you to Bernard West.
Right.
Thank you, Rama Chakaki. And it is, I feel like it's as I'm sitting at a
Right.
meeting, today held in Jordan, and that
Right.
was part of the conversation
Mm-hmm.
of the first thing that the facilitator said was raise your hands. Everybody put your hands up. He said, put them in your pocket. Put your hands back up with your phone. Turn it off. Put it back in your pocket. So it's a game changer.
It
You know, you
is.
look in education at things such as blended learning.
Yep.
You look at
Yep.
flipped
Oh,
classrooms.
love flipped
You look at
classrooms. Yep.
you look at the ed tech space. You see educators doing YouTube channel. You see so much
Right.
going on. Students' constant use of it.
Right.
For better or for worse at times.
Yeah.
And then being in, I think in Chicago, where there's a heavy sort of ed tech sort of space and focus, and seeing, so that's for me, that's my next step. So that's January 2018 straight onward for me, is focusing on ed tech based idea that I've had, want to pursue,
That's
and
awesome.
that's sort of that next step, for me. But it's not being afraid, just being able to dive in. And one of my examples has been my mother. When I say this woman is on Skype, Twitter,
I love it.
she gets it.
She gets
She's now like mentoring at her church. She does workshops to introduce
great.
other, elder folks to technology.
That's
She's
awesome.
very comfortable with that. She's on Periscope, YouTube, So a lot of this, I think these entrepreneur skills, I just watch her, and I'm just like,
Right.
and so she's for her, she's thinking her peer group is saying, did Kevin teach you this? She's like,
No.
I taught myself this. I sat down and figured it out. She has an
great.
iPhone, she figures it out. So yeah, but I feel like it's constantly going to play, a role. But it's knowing when to have that turn on time and turn off time.
Right, absolutely.
So I think it could be a friend, but it could be a foe at the same time.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Again, having that balance, so it's not constantly in our hands, which I know for me, it can sort of at times constantly be in my hand. Got to respond, got to check this email, got to get back to folks, Twitter, LinkedIn, but it's
all of that.
Taking that time off, knowing when to go offline.
Right.
But so much of my life is centered around that. And I remember back in, and this is dating myself again, in 1998, when I just finished up Michigan State, moved to DC, and was teaching there, but I wanted to finish part of my program sort of like, which will now be virtually.
Right.
So and if I could find that email, but it was like, would it be possible for me to like do this via correspondence back then?
Right.
Because this is before all this access and portals and things.
Right.
But they were like, no.
Wow.
And to think now that I have an online international school leadership program that I'm in online. We're on Skype. I'm in Jordan.
Right.
You're in New York.
Right.
I'm like social media and how much technology has just grown.
It really is. It's amazing. It really is amazing. The things, just even with the Twitter alone, like, and like you said, you're in Jordan, I'm here, and we can have a great conversation. It's amazing. It really is. A lot of, we in my district, I kind of coordinate some online courses for students, and for the students, everybody thinks, oh, they'll be fine with the online courses, but it's such a learning curve because students are really, they're used to the chalk and talk and being in a classroom. When you put them on an online situation, maybe not even blended learning, just strictly online, maybe once a week they'll meet with the teacher, it throws them off.
Right.
It's amazing, because you would think they would be, pretty savvy with it, but it's a whole way of learning, and I think there's so many opportunities there for education entrepreneurs as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm in one of my mentees now. He's an 11th grader, and the program is called I Mentor.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so I email him weekly.
Right.
And virtually weekly, and then monthly we meet up face to face.
Yeah. So. It's amazing. So before I let you go, I want you to talk a little bit about the EdVolve Global, a website that you're developing. To highlight education entrepreneurs and resources, collaboration opportunities, and more. So tell us about that, because that really, I was very interested in learning more about that.
Definitely, and you will definitely get an invite. So the big thing is, again, awareness and making people aware of whether someone is, 9 to 5, and I
Right.
have something on the side or I'm full
Right.
time.
Mm-hmm.
But just making more and more people aware of what's
Yeah.
possible, what
Right.
exists.
Exactly.
Because like I said, when I was doing sort of getting started, those Google searches,
Mm-hmm.
for education, entrepreneur, looking for who are these people, trying to find my tribe, where are they at,
Right.
these are my interests. So it's,
Right.
again, I'm trying to create like a one-stop shop sort of
Okay.
hub
Okay.
that'll be created and people have a chance and opportunity to, post and put information, their information.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to market, advertise, whatever, all that stuff will be
That's great.
at their, wherewithal. So, and a
That is
colleague and I sort of
awesome.
started the UAE Learning Network in that same manner. Just a
Okay.
source of information of where professional learning opportunities are, how to access them. Because that was the big thing is it was access. I didn't know
Access.
how to access or how to get started.
Mm-hmm. So, the testimonials that you had, mentioned that you're inspiring, you're invaluable resource, and you give, and I can tell, you give practical information that people can kind of grasp and really kind of digest and be able to put it into action. So, how are you able to help individuals get to a place where they can be education entrepreneurs
Mm.
and what do you do to kind of facilitate that?
Good question. So one thing I do is I call it the KDSL Global Ed Branding Project,
Okay.
and I started this years ago. And the reason it started was I was getting a lot of emails coming
Mm-hmm.
in saying, "How did you get started?
Right.
Tell me what were the steps."
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think after email number 3, I was like, okay, I can't sit here and answer all these.
Right.
I need to sit and reflect, on the pathway. And so I think that was sort of part one reflection.
Okay.
And so what I did was I created that program, and it's over 7 days. And I
Okay.
email you
Mm-hmm.
a task each day. And again,
Mm-hmm.
it's similar to me. Because I always say I start with 15 to 30 minutes. So it's like,
Right.
put in your calendar, when are you going to have time for you? So,
Right.
and you want to work on, your dream or your passion.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it starts with that. So we do that over 7 days, and then sort of give them 2 weeks because everybody don't do tasks on time. And so it's like you got 2 weeks, any days that you missed or didn't have a chance to complete something.
Right.
And then I follow up with them. So
Okay.
it's sort of email. Then it's like either face to face if we're in the same city or country,
Mm-hmm.
or it's a
A
Skype up
Skype.
or a
Okay.
Zoom. We might Zoom
Okay.
together to
Mm-hmm.
follow up and see where they're at, and then just emailing them sort of throughout their journey. For support, send them, connections, send them resources,
Okay.
things of that nature.
Okay. So, how can individuals, get in touch with you? I do have a screenshot of your website. I know there's a website there. Maybe we'll put that up. But how can people, get in contact with you? That's that one. Yeah.
Thanks, Verdel. Yep. So
Yep.
we have my email is kevin@kdslglobal.com. I am on LinkedIn,
Mm-hmm.
so KDSL Global, if you like that, or my name, Kevin Simpson.
Okay.
Then on Facebook, KDSL Global. And where else am I? Website, www.kdslglobal.com. So yeah, those are places and spaces where I operate and again share resources
Awesome.
widely. Where there's things in the U.S. or a lot of times there'll be things that are happening around Middle East, North Africa region.
Okay. So I want to say that I am so happy that we had this conversation. You are awesome. And
Thank you.
and just anytime that I have a guest and they're, in the education space, it's just it feels so natural.
Right.
The conversation. And being an entrepreneur is like the icing on the cake because you really show individuals how they can really follow their passions, as educators, and really do something that they love and enjoy, and you help them get to that place. So I want to thank you so much.
Thank you, Verdell. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Well, we're going to say good night, and I want to thank again Kevin Simpson for joining us. Make sure that you reach out to him to get any information, and I want to wish everyone a great evening. And I want to say thank you to Nancy Vargas Johnson. She's our sponsor for the show. Again, if you're looking to buy or sell a home in the Long Island area, give her a call. And with that being said, I want to have everyone have a great night. And Kevin, thank you again.
Thanks, Verdell.
Okay.